Let's analyze Bitcoin and the crypto ecosystem. You're now looking at Bitcoin on the 4-hour time frame. Remember, we've been working on a defense zone that has already been tested before, where they tried to trap shorts. After this test, we're now witnessing strong bullish aggression. Now, if we move down to the 1-hour time frame, let's take a look at what's happening. What's grabbing our attention? Clearly, we see this bearish impulse followed by a complex corrective pattern. We're likely in the final stage, the Z phase. Remember, Z phases often take the form of a wedge. They compact explosively until they eventually tend to detonate. The million-dollar question we all ask ourselves every morning is, when will that moment arrive? The answer can be very enticing, but we must also remember that predicting when a wedge will reverse is inherently challenging. In other words, from a prudence standpoint, it's always sensible to follow the prevailing structural trend. To be clear, a Z phase can be as aggressive as it wants, but at some point we expect it to break down for a potential continuation. This is when we evaluate on a smaller time frame how we can monitor if this event is likely to occur. Now, in this 15-minute time frame, we'll consider a formation that smart money frequently trades worldwide. After a strong impulse, the price often continues in a channel, ultimately seeking a climactic bullish action. We speculate that this climactic action might be deceptive. My colleague will go into detail to assess whether this climactic action has already occurred. But if it hasn't, well, this wedge has been attempted to be broken. Some say it has already broken. So I ask, is this the type of wedge break that we like to see? One that is forceful and suggests continuation? The answer is clear. Absolutely not. I don't believe this break, at least not today. Since I don't believe this break, we'll give it more space and consider that the wedge is still forming. This also leads us to think, if you've tried to break it so pathetically, I don't mind if you try again. So, at the price level of $70,380, we have a key level where a trap was previously set. I want you to pay close attention to how smart money has been defending this level and how a hypothetical short-term bearish trap could end at this structure, which we consider of great importance. If this Z phase, this wedge, eventually breaks violently and the structure I'm talking about is finally breached, it would mean a bearish outlook for the crypto ecosystem. But ultimately, we use these structures to track progress. So, now it will become clearer with the analysis of Ethereum and other altcoins. It makes sense to expect some kind of drop to evaluate the eventual occurrence of a climactic bullish action. And if you're wondering, where on earth does this line come from? Look, this is where it originates. We return to the 4-hour chart and see the point. Frankly, when we see this historical high, we give significant importance to the second attack if it remains below the high. For us, this level is key, and that's why it makes sense for them to seek it in the near term if we are working on this bearish impulse where the price continues with a complex corrective pattern, now forming a Z in a wedge shape. Remember, Z phases often target and impact key macro structures, and here we've shared one of them. With Bitcoin, we'll evaluate in this 1-hour chart that we shouldn't fear an attack on these levels. We expect the wedge to continue its work and bring a climactic bullish action to impact this zone before starting to look downward. And how does this cross with the analysis of Ethereum? In that hourly time frame, remember that we've come from a strong bullish impulse, which the price continues in an upward channel. Here, we've identified a creek, and in previous videos, we analyzed how these apparent drops were being absorbed, identifying the initiation of very directional purchases. Currently, Ethereum has broken aggressively under this whole idea, which we can expect. Hey, if Bitcoin is in a Z, in a wedge, and Ethereum essentially is too, what does this tell us? If we see that Ethereum is also in a Z, it makes sense that this could continue rising. If we value that Bitcoin makes sense to attempt a downward attack before rising for the climactic action, we must be prepared for such an event. How many times have we seen the break of a creek, the work of what appears to be a normal, traditional flat pattern, only to seek some liquidity within the accumulation process before making the move we all expect? We've seen this 1,001 times, and this bullish movement could be the deceptive climactic action of Bitcoin. In other words, we could also be considering that this macro bullish impulse might attempt to seek a replication and even fail, pointing in the other direction. All right, Eugenia, what can you tell us about altcoins?
The Solana chart shows us that we're experiencing a corrective pattern. Look at this impulse and how the price corrected first with a W followed by a weak EY and then continued with an aggressive Z. We see how this Z has been formed into a wedge, which we broke with a very strong impulse. Now, let me explain its importance. But first,
welcome to Crypto Insight, your ethical and moral channel for cryptocurrency technical analysis. Here, we really know what we're talking about. We conduct advanced technical analysis that has been developed for over 12 years. We upload videos several times a week. If you're enjoying what you're seeing, let me know and leave a comment with your opinion. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and click on the bell so you don't miss the next opportunity.
As I was saying, after the Z, we had this strong bearish impulse, which is now being corrected. To see it more clearly, let's go to the 1-hour time frame where we can see the bearish impulse and how it was then worked into a range format. This allowed us to draw a barrier, which has now been broken to the upside, and now a flat pattern is being worked on. What can we expect here, and what are the key points to consider? We could expect that after this flat pattern, they return for liquidity within the range. We've seen this many times in various assets. Here, we could expect different levels, though we don't know for sure where it will end up, but we can anticipate them, such as the value area high, this high volume node, or the PLC of the entire range. What else can we see here? After this strong bullish impulse that broke this structure, we see a micro corrective pattern. We can label this corrective pattern with a W, a weak Y, and weaky Y, and we could expect a Z. So expecting a Z also makes us value the idea of seeking liquidity within the range. Then what could we expect? After this bullish impulse and the corrective pattern, we might seek a replication of the first movement, which could even fail. Where could we expect this replication? We've identified these levels between $176 and $178, where we have high transactional volume nodes from the preceding distribution. This bullish impulse we're talking about can be associated with the climactic action we might be expecting in Bitcoin. But beware, this might not happen. Let me explain why. Returning to the Bitcoin chart and in a 15-minute time frame, as Renzo explained earlier, we are waiting here after the channel and range impulse for a climactic action. At the same time, we could say that it has already happened. This is because after the impulse, we see the channel, the smaller range, and the climactic action. So we ask ourselves, is this climactic action the definitive one, or is it simply part of a larger range still forming from which we would expect a more pronounced movement? How can we follow this up? We see we have a creek that, if broken, would confirm this climactic action and the entire crypto ecosystem would start looking downward. But if they attack and fail, then we would expect a macro climactic action. After this macro climactic action, we will then look downward. Returning to the Solana chart, as I just explained, we could expect this climactic action not to happen, and this might indeed be a trap. We should expect the price to break down for us to definitely look downward. We'll know this if Bitcoin's creek breaks down.
Super analysis. Continuing with Cardano, remember that we've been working on a bearish impulse followed by this bearish channel, which I confirm we've updated the guideline. And now we're considering whether we will experience a climactic bullish action in the crypto ecosystem. It might seem that we are breaking key structures, but they might be a trap, leading us to temporarily look downward. Note we are talking about short-term charts here. No one is saying that Bitcoin is going to $20, for example. That would be absurd. We're on an hourly chart, and to be honest, we're not telling you what will happen after this micro drop, after the hypothetical climactic bullish action. Whether it goes up or down afterward, we'll update you. This is just to put things in context so no one thinks we're taking crypto very low. Now, look at Polkadot on its hourly time frame, how it's working this defense zone. At the price level of $7,130, we see a creek has been set, where there's been a big breakout, some deceleration, some validation. But ultimately, hey, size-wise, this seems too big to be a flat pattern. We will then consider, if initially, regarding this bullish impulse, after working the W, the I wants to form a Z to seek some liquidity, just like in Solana, and then seek a deceptive climactic action before looking downward again. Remember, all this information is provided by Bitcoin, as we're now experiencing this complex corrective pattern living through a Z. And here we see this range from which at some point we expect a deceptive climactic bullish action. What we do at Crypto Insight is cross-analyze the crypto ecosystem. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell so YouTube notifies you of upcoming posts. Good luck with your trading, and see you next time.